What if the person you've been married to for 10 years isn't who you thought they were? Imagine finding out they've been living a double life this whole time. Would you confront them, or would you walk away forever? This is the story of Mary and Jack. They had everything: a beautiful home, two kids, and what seemed like a perfect life. But behind the smiles and the perfect dinners, Jack had been hiding something huge, something Mary would never have imagined. Today, we'll dive into their story, the shocking truth that Mary uncovered, and the life-changing decision she had to make. For Mary, life had always been predictable. Jack, her husband, was a successful lawyer. He worked hard, always came home by dinner, and was everything she thought she needed. They had been married for 10 years, and although there had been ups and downs like any couple, Mary believed they were stronger than ever. Jack loved her. Jack loved their kids. She never had any reason to doubt him. But one fateful day, Mary found herself scrolling through Jack's phone, a rare thing for her to do, considering they had always trusted each other. She wasn't snooping. She was just trying to check something for him while he was in the shower. That's when she saw it. A message. It wasn't the usual, "Hey babe, love you," or "Can't wait to see you tonight." No, this one was different. This one was to a woman named Lily. The text was simple but chilling. "I can't wait to see you this weekend. I miss you. Don't forget to pack the kids' things." The kids' things? What did that even mean? Mary's heart began to race. She couldn't breathe. She didn't know who Lily was, but she felt an uncomfortable tightening in her chest. Her mind raced. Could it be someone he worked with? Someone from his past? Mary tried to shake it off. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was just a friendly conversation. But as she scrolled further through the conversation, things became clearer. There were mentions of our weekend, our little family, and even the house. The house. Her world was crashing down around her. Her husband had been seeing someone else, and it wasn't just some affair. It seemed like a full-blown second family. The more she read, the worse it got. Jack had been spending weekends in another city with another woman. And children. After that initial shock, the reality of what she had uncovered settled into Mary's bones. At first, she had felt numb. But now, the questions started to flood her mind. The thoughts felt like an overwhelming tidal wave crashing over her, each one harder to escape than the last. How could Jack do this to her? What was going through his mind when he smiled at her every day, kissed her goodnight, and pretended everything was fine? It wasn't just the affair. It was the fact that for months, Jack had been living another life, a life where she didn't exist. He had been spending weekends in another city with another woman, building a future that wasn't with Mary, all while she had been waiting for him to come home and be with their family. The betrayal wasn't just physical, it was emotional. Jack had been lying about everything: his weekends away, his late nights at the office, the work trips that weren't for work at all. Each piece of the puzzle she now held felt like a knife, twisting deeper into her heart. It was like she had been living in a carefully constructed lie, a world where she believed her husband was loyal, reliable, the man she could count on, the man who promised her forever. Yet, all along, she had been just another part of his illusion. Her thoughts started spiraling into a storm. She thought back to all the times he had brushed off her concerns about his odd behaviors, when he stayed late at work for urgent meetings, when he'd forget to mention his plans over the weekend, or when he was too tired to do anything but watch TV in silence. It all made sense now. The tiredness wasn't from work. It was because he had been living double lives, one with her and one with Lily. His distance had never been about stress, it had been about guilt. Mary had always considered herself a perceptive person. She had always prided herself on being able to read people, to understand the signs. But in this case, she had missed every warning. It was as if Jack had been a master illusionist, hiding his true self right in front of her eyes. She tried to pull herself together. She needed answers. But when she looked at their life together, at their children, who were fast asleep in their rooms, the weight of the decision ahead was suffocating. She was torn. She had built everything with Jack, her whole life. He was the father of her children, the man she had shared her dreams with. And now, she wasn't sure who he was anymore. She spent the night walking through the house, her mind racing. She kept imagining Jack with Lily, laughing, loving, sharing everything that should have been theirs. The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She couldn't believe how selfish he was. How could he look her in the eyes and lie to her for so long? She wasn't just hurt, she was furious. But Mary knew she had to stay composed. She had to make a decision. She couldn't let him keep tearing her apart with his lies. As the days passed, she could feel the walls of her marriage closing in. She could feel the gap between her and Jack growing wider, despite his attempts to explain himself and assure her that it was all a mistake. His apologies felt hollow to her now. There was no excuse. There was nothing he could say to fix what he had broken. Then, as the days turned into weeks, something inside Mary began to shift. She couldn't just keep pretending everything was fine. She could feel the cracks deepening. She had to face this head on. No more hiding, no more pretending. She didn't know what to expect when she confronted him, but she couldn't carry the weight of the secret anymore. She needed answers, and she needed to be strong. The evening Jack came home was like any other, or at least it appeared to be. Mary went about dinner as usual, stirring the pot, setting the table, calling the kids in from the living room to eat. But this time, the tension was palpable. Jack didn't seem to notice it at first, too caught up in his own world. He made small talk about his day, asking her about the kids, about work, about the house. But Mary was far away. Her heart was thudding in her chest. Her palms were slick with sweat. She couldn't believe she was about to do this. She had planned it in her head 100 times, but nothing could have prepared her for the reality. She was going to confront Jack about his lies, about his betrayal. She was going to ask him to explain everything. She didn't know how it would play out, but she was certain of one thing: this was the beginning of the end. As they finished dinner, Jack stood up and started clearing the dishes. That was when Mary couldn't take it any longer. The dam inside her broke. She couldn't look at him and pretend like everything was okay. "Jack, we need to talk," Mary said, her voice quiet but firm. He turned, surprised, setting the dishes down. "What's going on, Mary? You've been distant all evening." "Don't pretend like you don't know," Mary said, her voice starting to shake, but she wasn't backing down now. Jack took a step forward, concern flickering in his eyes. "Mary, what's happening? What's wrong?" Mary stood up from the table, pacing back and forth, trying to contain the storm inside her. "I found the messages. I found everything. The texts, the receipts, the photos." Her voice trembled, but she could barely hold back the flood of anger and disbelief. "You've been lying to me, Jack, for months. You've been living a double life. How could you do this?" Jack's face went pale, his eyes widened, and for the first time in a long time, Mary saw panic in his face. He opened his mouth to speak, but words failed him. He looked lost, like a man trapped by his own lies. "Mary, please," he started, his voice faltering. "It wasn't what you think. Don't." She cut him off sharply. "Don't give me any excuses. I've seen everything. You've been with her. You've been with Lily, and you've been with her for over a year. You've had another family, Jack. You've betrayed me. You've betrayed us." Jack reached out, as if to touch her, but Mary pulled back, her eyes burning with rage and hurt. She wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. "Mary, I never meant for it to happen like this," Jack pleaded, his voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you. It just happened. I didn't know how to stop it. I love you. I never stopped loving you." Mary's heart shattered at his words, but she couldn't let herself believe them anymore. She had given him everything. She had loved him with all her heart, but now she couldn't ignore the truth anymore. His love wasn't enough to fix what he had broken. He couldn't be the man he once was. "No, Jack," she whispered, the words feeling like knives in her throat. "You don't get to love me anymore. Not like this. You've already destroyed everything we had." For a moment, Jack stood still, his face pale, his shoulders slumped in defeat. There were no more words to say. The truth had come crashing down, and it was too late to take it back. As Mary walked away from him, heading toward the door, the weight of her decision pressed heavily on her chest. She didn't know what would happen next. She didn't know how she would rebuild her life, but she knew one thing: she wasn't going to let Jack keep breaking her heart. The aftermath of the confrontation was a blur. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. Mary filed for divorce. She fought for her independence, for her peace of mind, for a future without lies. The road was long, and the pain was deep. But in the end, she realized something important. She was stronger than she thought. Jack may have broken their family, but Mary had the power to heal herself. She learned that forgiveness wasn't about accepting the past. It was about moving forward and rebuilding her own life. Mary's story wasn't just about betrayal. It was about reclaiming her strength and finding peace in a world where she had lost it. If you've ever faced a tough choice like Mary's, leave a comment and let us know what you would do in her situation. And don't forget to subscribe for more emotional stories like this one.